Hi everybody, my name's Young Lee. I'm a recovered addict. I'm an alcoholic. It's really good to be here. Rachel's asked me to stand in for her. So we're picking up on page 85, the last two lines. So we're moving into step 11, and I'm just going to get straight into it. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. And I was just pondering about what this whole thing is all about, getting a conscious being awake to the conscious contact with God or spirit. And this whole process from 1 to 9 kind of reveals and exposes my ego to me, my self-will, the things that seem to block me from God, from happiness, from peace, and seem to cause me a lot of discomfort. I was going to say ill will, but yes, they cause me that also. They cause these things, that this revealing process, that no wonder I drink and use when I have these eyes that look at the world in such a negative way. But this is what 4 to 9 have done for me. That's what they. And then we've got into these steps 10, 11, and 12. The I spoke about this last night. What a perfect design they are. We've got this step 10, and we've got everything in there. We often say 4 to 9. I like to even think about it as 1 to 9 in one step, that I'm constantly watching, going to God, discussing, turning my attention to the practices that start becoming what I do without thinking, because my body seems to tell me when there's a disturbance in the force or a disturbance, there's something that my body starts to tell me. I start waking up a little bit more. And so now I'm getting into this step 11, which is the beauty for me of step 11 is that I have these very clear cut. You could even say basic, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean for even a fool like me, I can understand what I'm going to speak about. The practices of on awakening, retire. They're very clear cut. That's my starting point. That's my um, that's my daily disciplines. And then as I dance through this path, I can go as deep as I want, not doing things instead of the basic practices, but as well as. I had a newcomer this morning I was working with, very keen, been lit on fire, and he said, right, what other books? What other books? And I said, I would just suggest the big book right now. Just kind of really, because I know what I'm like as a newcomer. I want to read everything, and I want to be like a master Jedi Knight. And I forget that I was living in a skip a few weeks ago. I'm exaggerating slightly. So there's two things in that, isn't there? So actually, step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And I think about the Oxford group who came before Alcoholics Anonymous and their two-way prayer, and I'll talk about that relating to the pages as we go along. This listening for direction, this writing things down. And then I think about sought through prayer, suggest prayer and meditation. On that page from We Agnostics, where it says, God comes to all those who seek, something like that. I'm now a seeker. Why did I start becoming a seeker? Well, actually, I look back, I was always seeking something, but I was looking in the wrong places. I was so asleep to the truth, which this wakes me up to the truth. So suggest through prayer and meditation. So there's two things there. There's not just prayer and not just meditation. There's prayer and meditation. Now, we often debate about this, whether what they're talking about in the next page about meditation being sort of pondering. In the 1930s, it had a different meaning. But for me, I would be a fool to discount other types of meditation when people have been doing it for thousands of years. So I always say to my new people that I work with, because I always suggest to them from day one, prayer and meditation. And when they say, my mind is crazy, Young, what do you expect me to sit down? I said, no, it would be unrealistic to suggest to a newcomer to sit down for 20 minutes in meditation. But I say, staring out the window for 1 minute is meditation. Walking along the beach is meditation. Sitting in a meeting when you're listening is meditation. In my mind. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just how I see things. So, prayer and meditation. Also, I say to them, there's no right or wrong way to pray and meditate. I think the important thing is from the beginning is to get into the habit of just doing these disciplines. And someone said to me, when will I feel? I've been praying, Young, I don't feel anything. And I said to them, whenever I'm meditating or praying, particularly early on, I didn't feel anything. It was just after doing it consistently that my mind feels a bit calmer. My reactions start to become a bit different. I start to have a different walk, etc., etc. But it's the consistency and persistence, prayer, meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. And this is where this book is so much more than just getting knowledge. Because what do we know? That self-knowledge is not enough. Any fool can learn a big book. Any fool can quote this book, but when I'm doing that, it's just coming from my ego. This is a spiritual walk. It has to be more than knowledge. It has to go into my heart, and it has to be more than informational, and it has to be transformational for someone like me, a desperate alcoholic, a desperate drug addict, because I'm beyond human aid. And it's almost like all I have to do is allow this process to happen. And then through these practices that we will get into, I can start pondering in meditation, how am I now bringing my awakened spirit into the world? How am I doing that today? How have I been doing? I can constantly do this throughout the day. The practices we'll talk about. I love this bit here. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. And I think also back to the pioneers, and thank God for those guys. They would get into groups and they would have morning devotion together before, I believe I'm correct, but if I'm wrong, please do correct me. Before you were even allowed in a meeting back in the day, you had to surrender to God. There was no messing about with this stuff. And in Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, he talks about some of the early practices of the early guys. And he says, meetings are desirable, but morning prayer, meditation, and devotion are essential, absolutely essential. I came back from a trip a few months ago, I think it was, and one of my sponsees said to me, did you have time to pray and meditate when you were away? And I almost started laughing because it's like saying, did you have time to eat food? Because this is my spiritual food now. After a tiny bit of time being around, I couldn't imagine life without prayer and meditation. It feeds my soul. It helps to keep me grounded. It helps to keep me awake, although I'm very asleep a lot of the time. And when I go back through this work, I realize how asleep I am actually. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men or women than we are using it constantly. That's where I want to be. I'm not there yet. Definitely not. But I shared this last night. When I was early in, I was always attracted or drawn towards people that were really deep on this path. And when I look back, I've got no idea because, they had nothing in common with me. They were always kind of older. I was drawn towards them. Maybe it was just the desperation in me that was drawn towards the spirit in them. And there was an elderly lady, and I'm very close to her. I love her. I love her. And for some reason, I used to always say, will you come for a coffee with me after this meeting? And she'd say, yeah, of course. And we'd go walking. And she would always talk about the Bible. And she'd talk about the Bible, and I'm laughing because she'd talk about the Bible stories. She'd tell me stories. I loved them, listening. And she used to say, but I'm not religious. I said, you know a lot about the Bible for someone who's not religious, don't you? She said, no, I'm not religious. I love the stories, and it fits into the principles we do in this 12-step program. And one of the things I always remember, one day I asked her, I said, how do you pray? And she paused and she looked at me. And remember, this is a lady who'd been on the path for maybe 35 years. And she said, a nun taught me this prayer, young. She said, whatever. That was her favorite prayer. Whatever. And she said, to me, young, every breath is a prayer. And that blew me away. She was so awake that she can see that every breath is so precious, is a life-giving force. And she's so awake to that. So that whenever I read this, it always reminds me of her. Better men than us are using it constantly. And I've wrote at the top of my book here, am I committed to my spiritual practice? And, because I still have a mind that seems to want to compete with God. It seems to want to drag me off the path. It seems to want to put fear into me when there's no fear. It's just coming from, it seems that my self-will seems to be opposed to the will of God. But the more I get into the practice, the less strong that is, and the stronger my God, or the more awake to my God I am. Here we've got a promise coming up. It works if, I love the word if in the big book, if we have the proper attitude and work at it. I need to set aside everything I think I know. It's a prayer I do every single day with all my new guys before we get into step work. What's the proper attitude? Open mind, perhaps, willingness to seek, and work at it. I don't even like the word work at it because it's not work for me, this, but I put a lot into my recovery because I put a lot into my drinking and a lot into my using. I put a lot in my devotion to God today. Very imperfectly, I must say. It would be easy to be vague about this matter. Yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. So definite is definite, isn't it? It's precise, it's clear, it's to the point, very clear-cut suggestions or instructions right here, right now, like Fatboy Slim. When we retire at night. So I like that. I once heard someone talk about this. And it really struck me because what has happened sometimes over the years past is that I would leave this end of night review right to the end of the night when I was quite tired, and it would become quite mechanical, just like a tick box exercise. And I have to remember, this isn't a tick box exercise. This is a spiritual practice. And someone said, Young, when someone retires at work, it's when they finish work. Maybe retiring at night, maybe that could be any time from the, look, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying this makes sense to me. Maybe this can be any time from the moment you finish work. The day starts coming down. So for me, the best time to do it is before I get tired for me. When I retire at night, we constructively, so I love that word constructively, look in a way that's going to be useful to me in some way. Constructively review my day. And now we get into the real clear instructions here. Were we resentful? I've also put, were, and how. Was I resentful? But how was I resentful? Was I selfish? How was I selfish? Dishonest or afraid? Now let's think about those one, two, three, four things. Resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid. What did it tell me that I had to continue to watch for in step 10? Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. In step 3, where it told me what the root of my trouble is, what was it? Selfishness, driven by 100 forms of fear. So I'm continuing to watch for what my trouble is. The things that block me from God. The things that keep me a bondage to myself. And also, don't we look for those things in the 4th column of step 4, don't we? My mistakes. Where was I? Selfish. So all along, it's almost like the arrows are pointing, wake up, young. Look what this is, a thing that's blocking you. These things I want, I need. Do I owe an apology? Do I owe an apology? Has my ego prevented me from apologizing today when I should have apologized? And can I see that? Can I see that? Have I kept something to myself which should be discussed at once with another person? Sorry, with another person at once? Was I kind and loving towards all? So this bit here is a lovely bit also, because as well as looking at these things, I'm going to look at the good that I've done. Where was I kind today? Where was I kind? Where did I see God today? Where did I hear God in other people today? Why do I do that? So I can learn and so I can grow in effectiveness, in harmony with you. What could I have done better? Was I thinking of myself most of the time? Or was I thinking of what I could do for others, of what I could pack into the stream of life? So there's a few different ways that I've done this over the years. The first year or so, I used to have an app on my phone called My Spiritual Toolkit, and it has all the questions, and you can kind of, put it on your phone, and I'd send it to my sponsor. And I'm not discounting any of these ideas by any of these methods. I just think the fact I'm doing it when I'm quite new in is a miracle. The fact I'm following some directions when I'm new in is a miracle. But when I used to do this practice, I would go through these questions, and I'm kind of laughing because it's laughable for me. Was I resentful? No. Selfish? No. Dishonest? No. Yeah. Was I kind and loving towards all? Yes. And I can see every day somewhere where I've been selfish today. Now, I wasn't trying to lie when I was saying that I wasn't selfish. I just wasn't awake. I just wasn't awake. And the process as I go through the practices and prayer, meditation, I start waking up just a little bit more to my flaws and limitations. And then I have also done it, and I do it like this. Also, I've done it where I write this down every night, and that's a real discipline. I think that's probably the best way to do it, actually. Am I doing it like that today? No, I'd be lying if I said I am. Today, I have paper by the side of my bed. I have a pen. I do this kind of in meditation. I go through these questions, and often things come up for me which I write down. Sometimes they're things that are not even on here. Oh, I need to phone Texas tomorrow, or some mantra comes into my mind that I don't understand, and I write it down and I take it into meditation. So that's how I do it today. But the questions are very clear, aren't they? The things that I need to be looking at, the areas I need to be waking up to are really clear. And I like this bit here. But I must be careful. I must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. I like that word drift. It's almost like the mind can drift, when you get random thoughts and, oh, I was selfish. Oh my God, I'm such a bad person. But no, we're not saying that. I'm saying I'm putting a full stop on the day. Whatever has happened at the end of the day, it's done. It's done. I'm not beating myself up for being a flawed, normal human being. I'm meant to make mistakes. I'm meant to stumble because if I'm awake, I can learn from that and I can see how much I need God. And what I do after I do my review, I just say, God, please help me be a better person tomorrow. That's just how I do it. It says, after making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. You know, there's a simple prayer like, God, show me how to be. A lot of my prayers, someone asked me this question last night and they said, what's your favorite prayer? And I answered the Thomas Merton prayer. It's just the one that was on my mind then. But sometimes my favorite prayers are, thank you, help me. I'm not rigid in my prayer life. I pray a lot. I'm not rigid in it. You know, when I was in my first year, I was quite rigid. I was quite rigid, and now I'm more in the flow. Um, so that's very, very clear about what I do every single night. Very, very clear. And now we've got some more instructions for what we do when we wake up in the morning. And those who know me know I wake up between 3 and 4 a.m. So I've got plenty of time to do this. I don't choose to wake up at that time, but I just get woken up really early and I'm really happy to be alive because I've escaped hell. So I'm so happy. Which is annoying sometimes for people around me. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. So here's some meditation in my pondering. I'm lying there, I'm just pondering about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. I love the word consider. For me, I always think about like bamboo. I'm not going to be rigid in my thinking about the day. Or I might meet Tommy at 10, but if it doesn't go like that, that's okay as well. You know, I'm considering maybe because I can have plans, but I have no idea how life is going to unfold in front of me. I have to let it unfold rather than try and be the actor and run the show and need it to go a certain way for me to be okay. So we consider our plans for the day. Here we've got the instructions. Before I begin, I love the simplicity of this. We ask God to direct my thinking. God, please direct my thinking. Literally, it's just that for me. That's powerful. God, please direct my thinking. And I think for me with prayer, it's not so much the words for me, it's the intention, where it's coming from. That's important for me. So I really mean it when I'm really asking, please direct my thinking. Um, Especially asking, remember, whenever it's asked, we've got prayers going on, that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. So again, the self, my humanness, my ego that wants control, that wants sort of dominance, I guess. So I think about the word divorced. Why would I want to get divorced from something? Well, because it's not working, because it's broken, because it's causing grief in my life, as do self-pity, dishonest or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, when we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. So I can use my thinking when it's not selfish, when I'm thinking of you. And a teacher once said to me, Young, when you get deep on the spiritual path, it's almost like you'll close your eyes and you'll be at peace. And when you open your eyes, you'll say, What can I do for you? And when it's you in your self-will, you'll close your eyes and your head is busy and you open your eyes and you say, I want, I need. And my mind isn't crazy today. You know, that's a miracle. God's gave me brains to use. You know, because I've heard I remember going to meetings with people with quite a lot of time saying, my mind's still crazy. No, these practices quieten the mind. Quieten the mind. Self-will, still very strong, of course, but God's will is stronger today. So where are we? Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when My thinking is cleared of wrong motives. What are wrong motives? Me thinking about me. That seems to keep me in pain. And when I'm not thinking about me and I'm thinking of you, my thought life seems to be much more clarity to it, much more goodness, much more depth, much more kindness, much more compassion. So there's a whole bunch of instructions in there on awakening, what I'm asking God for. Um, Now we've got some more. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. What I do know today, it's okay not to know. It's great not to know. I used to always need to know what was happening. Someone asked me what my 5-year plan was the other day. I said, I don't even have a 5-day plan. I've stopped planning, just allowing things to happen. Um, so in thinking about our day, I may face indecision. Okay, what do I do if I face indecision? I'm not sure which way I go. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Okay, what do I do then? Here, so I get into prayer. We ask God for inspiration and intuitive thought or decision. And this is one of my favorite bits in the big book. It's one of my favorite instructions. We relax. Ah, because I love relaxing. We relax. We take it easy. We do not struggle. That was a revelation. I thought life was meant to be a struggle. No, it's not actually. It's just my mind that convinces me it's a struggle. I have to breathe and relax into God, into life itself, into my skin. And in Bill's story, I'm not sure which page, but it says, we sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for strength and inspiration, for guidance or something such as that. And then on the other page where we get into the pause, which is one of my favorite, most powerful spiritual practices. All these practices, like relaxing and taking it easy and pausing and sitting quietly when in doubt, they took me a lot of practice to get into, because almost like, cold water swimming, very popular these days. People jump into freezing lakes and it's very good for the body and etc. I don't like the cold. But if I was to jump into a cold lake right now, because I haven't practiced doing that, I would have a reaction. My body would start to struggle. Oh my goodness, it would start to struggle. Whereas people that are trained and that practice it, breathe into, breathe into it. And it's a bit like this for me, or how I see it, these practices of relaxing and taking it easy, because my body, my mind wants to fight reality. It wants to struggle. It wants to control. It wants to work things out. So I just have to get into these spiritual practices that over time become normal. It becomes more normal to relax into life than to struggle with it. And look, I used to struggle for decades of my life, decades. Um, Because what I know today, there's no pain in this program. The pain is in the struggle, in my resistance, in life. Me arguing with reality, there's the struggle. Me arguing with life, there's the struggle. I love that phrase, relax. Everything is out of control. When I can see the world like that, what have I got to worry about? Anyway. Um, and also, I'll tell a little story relating to this. Relax, we take it easy, we don't struggle. My daughter, I've told loads of stories about my daughter lately when I'm speaking. She's a beautiful young lady. When she was about 2 years old, she rushed into the front room and she was struggling to breathe and she had blood coming out of her nose. She was like, and it was terrible. It was terrible. And so I got her in the car, rushed to hospital. And what had happened, she'd swallowed a coin and it had got stuck in her throat, so she couldn't breathe. She was finding it difficulty, and it was Oh, it was horrible. Even thinking about it now, it was horrible. And so they rushed her down, and they were they were just waiting for a bed to operate, to put her on under general anesthetic. And it was terrible thinking my little girl would have to have this operation. And for some reason, and she was really distressed. And somehow she fell asleep just before the bed was ready. And when she came to, she looked very different. She looked kind of okay. And so I said to the doctors, before you operate on her, can you x-ray her again, please? And they did. And what had happened is, because she'd relaxed, the coin had fallen through. And it always makes me think about this in life. If I relax, I'm not stuck. If I relax, I can breathe. Okay, so we are often surprised how the right answers come after we tried this for a while. After I've tried relaxing for a while, after I've tried asking God for inspiration. Because how many times today have I stopped and asked God for guidance? Because this for me is what it's all about, asking God for guidance, sitting quietly when in doubt. And so many times when I do that, an intuitive thought comes into my mind, which is not coming out of struggle or me trying. It comes through me relaxing into God. So we're often surprised how the right answers come after we've tried this for a while. So this is the first reference to time. It makes three references to time in the next few lines, which I always think are quite important. What used to be the hunch or occasional inspiration gradually, so there's another reference to time, gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it's not probable we're going to be inspired at all times, but our thinking will, as time passes, another reference to time, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it. So let's have a look at that. I'm surprised when in my early days, I'm surprised when these things come into my mind. Because I'm not used to it. After I've tried these practices for a while, my eyes start changing. I start waking up slightly. And all I have to do is pause, breathe, pray, allow myself to be led, listen in prayer and meditation. And when I'm still, I'm free. I led a guided meditation today to some quite new guys, and I could see how they were finding it really difficult to just sit and be. And one of the things I said to them is just be aware what your mind's trying to do. It seems to want to keep us trapped. I need a power greater than. And a spiritual life, like these practices, it's all about this cultivating this relationship with this power, with God. Like I would cultivate a garden. I wouldn't go in a garden and just water it once. I would have to go and prune, pick up the weeds. I would have to put a lot of work into that garden to cultivate something wonderful. And the same with my relationship with God in my step 11 practice. Um, Being still inexperienced. Basically, I'm gonna make a lot of mistakes on this path. And I believe that I need to make mistakes. I need to be in my self-will sometimes. I need to sit in those defects of character. Sometimes it shows me how much I need to lean in on a spiritual plane. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it, on this sixth sense, this God consciousness that I've woken up to. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve the conscious contact. God's always been there. I've just been very asleep to what's always been there. And now, as I go through these steps, a little bit of light, the little spark is ignited, and I'm kind of aware. Maybe I can, like a small spark on a campfire, I can slightly feel the heat. And I like the heat. So I'm going to feed the fire. I'm going to feed the fire. Um, there, I was going there. The sixth sense. Now we've got five senses, of course. Sometimes I can hear things and I hear the wrong thing. Sometimes I think I see something and I see the wrong thing. Um, Now I rely on this sixth sense. Now I look at it like this. I think about my sixth sense, my God consciousness like this. When I was a child, I was a very naughty kid. Very naughty. I was a naughty kid. And often I'd get into a lot of trouble. I got kicked out of loads of schools and all sorts of stuff. And I would be about to do something bad, and something inside me would be trying to tell me not to do it. Don't do it, don't do it. But my mind was stronger than the voice inside me. And so I'd set fire to that car, or I'd do this, or I'd do this. And then after I'd get in trouble and I'd think, oh my God, has anyone done that? I thought, why didn't I listen to my gut? I should have listened to my gut. That's my God conscious. That's my sixth sense. But imagine now tapping into that starts becoming louder than that. My mind stops becoming my God when I tap into this as my way of life, as my walk. I come to rely upon it. I'll give you an example. I hope I can share this without breaking anonymity. Yeah, I think I can. Um, Last week or the week before, like I'm on the road a lot, and when I'm sort of here for the weekend, it's a very precious time. I have a weekend here and then I've got 8 weeks on the road. Um, and I had a week here and I was really looking forward to just, I had a bit of step work and stuff, but just not doing much. And I woke up in the morning and I got this sixth sense, my God consciousness telling me I should go to this meeting, this face-to-face meeting in a town which is about 1 hour and a half from here. And everything in me was trying to talk me out of going to that meeting. Everything in me. But something, I've learned to listen to that inside me. And I phoned up some new guys who happened to be in a treatment center. And I said, look, I'll take you. And one of them said, oh, thanks so much. I'm from this town. I don't know anyone there, and I'm leaving this place next week. And I thought, maybe that's why I was being told to help this person. And when I got there was a guy from Poland there that knows me, and I thought, I know this Polish guy who's really struggling in this big book. That's that. I listened to this inside, and it leads me to places like that. If I'd listened to my mind that morning, it didn't want me to go there because it was too far and I just want to sit on my backside doing nothing. But I've come to rely upon this today. Let's continue. We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. So again, and I'm kind of repeating myself, what meditation? Well, they're talking about the retiring at night and awakening in the morning, this contemplating, this pondering. But like I've already said, I would have to be a fool to ignore other types of meditation where people have been doing it for thousands of years. And often when I'm taking people through We Agnostic, I talk about even before religion, people were praying and meditating. How do I know that? There's records of it. Look at these crazy buildings, that Stonehenge, etc., etc., etc. They had this feeling of mystery and awe and wonder. God is in every man, deep down in every man when we're a child. So people have been doing this for thousands, maybe even more years. Why? Because it works. Things that don't work don't last very long, do they? Certainly not thousands of years. So what I do know with prayer and meditation, my mind is quieter today. I've tapped into something inside me that I can hear quite loudly sometimes today. But of course, I don't get this without going through the rest of the, the first, where are we, 11, the first 10 steps. I don't get that until then. Although with my new guys, I do direct them to these practices just to get into the habit of doing it. I'm not going to say you're going to get the goal, just doing it, man. Um, where are we? Where are we? So the prayer. I'm praying that I be shown the day what my next step be. Please help me see, God. Please help me see. Um, we ask. So again, the prayer, especially for freedom from self-will, because that is my problem today, my self-will. Not drugs and alcohol, that's been removed, like it said in the step 10 promises. My problem is my self-will. It's so strong, it doesn't want to give up the crown. All the religious and spiritual practices that I know, they're trying to do the same as what we are, get rid of the self-will, because it blocks me from God. It blocks me from God. And are careful to make no requests for ourselves only. So I'm not praying for a Ferrari today. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others be helped. And we do pray for ourselves, don't we? Because someone said we don't pray for ourselves. Well, what's the serenity prayer? God grant me. What's the resentment prayer or the sick man's prayer? God save me from being angry. Because when I'm angry, I can't be useful to someone. When I'm not serene, I can't be useful to anyone. And when I'm those things, I am so blocked from God. We are careful never to pray for our own self. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. If circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends to join us in morning meditation. For me, there's nothing more powerful than morning meditation with a group. I do a little group for some sponsees on a Tuesday morning, and we do a meditation and prayer group, and it's so powerful, it's so wonderful. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, so that's kind of definite, clear cut. We attend to that also. I couldn't imagine life without a definite morning devotion. I couldn't imagine it today. It's so important because when I wake up in the morning, I have a choice whether I plug into faith or I plug into fear. If I had a television, which I don't, I haven't had one for 10 years. Best thing I did, getting rid of that. If I was starting the day watching the news, does the news fill me with goodness, with joy, or does it go, oh, there's a war and there? It fills me full of fear. And that's not good for the alcoholic mind. If I read newspapers, which I haven't done for years, because I see they don't seem to fill me full of goodness. This and seen this, I'll be like the Florida businessman lolling in the sunshine. Oh, look what's happening in the world. I need to look inside here. If I was to do that, I'm feeding fear. If I start the day on social media, and I'm looking at everyone's life and I think my life's terrible, I'm feeding fear. So I start the day with morning devotion, prayer, meditation, and it seems to ignite or wake me up to what's already there. If not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we have been discussing. I've not yet come across a prayer that doesn't emphasize the principles in the 12 steps. I don't. Because if we think about it, at the basis of every religious practice that I've looked at is goodness, is love, is help your neighbor. I'm talking about the principles. I'm not talking about some people in them that might corrupt those things because they are flawed like me. But this is my opinion. I believe we have the most pure spiritual movement in the world in the 12 steps because there's no money involved, because money changes everything. There's no bosses, there's no buildings, there's just one alcoholic or addict working with another, and we have these so beautiful to have that, so pure. But there's all these different prayers that they all fit into what we're doing, what we do here in the 12 steps. There are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. I love this bit here. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they've got to offer. I'd have to be a fool not to make use. You know, some of the books, the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, have been around a lot longer than the big book. You know, this just happens to be some wonderful instructions that gets me connected to God and to power. But I can go deeper. And Bill was so humble on page, I think, 164, where he says, we only know a little. I I I can go as deep on this practice as I wish to go. I might not want to go very deep, and that's fine. You know, but my experience, the more I delve deeper into other things, and like I always say, not instead of the 12 steps. I do it as well as, the closer I seem to feel to God. That's been my experience. But like I said to those newcomers this morning, when they asked me what spiritual books they should read, I said to them, why don't you just stick to this big book right now? Don't get distracted from the practices in this, because we have some wonderful, very simple practices, spiritual practices within the 12 steps in the big book. This is my favorite. This is for me, this is one of my most powerful spiritual practices. As we go through the day, we pause. We pause when agitated or doubtful. So I started doing that over and over again, 1 year, 2 year, and then I just realized that I started pausing a lot for no reason. And maybe in the pause, that's my meditation, in the pause. Because in the pause, time stands still. In the pause, I'm safe and protected. In the pause, there's no resentment, there's no anger, there's no jealousy, there's just love. There's just me and God in the pause. How do I know when I'm agitated or doubtful? Today, my body tells me. My body tells me there's a disturbance in me, and I know that it's not because of you. It's because I'm disturbable. And ask for the right thought or action. So I'm getting back into prayer. And I remember going through these pages with a newcomer once, and she said to me, maybe the pause is the fourth dimension. And I thought, whoa, that was something I'd take into meditation. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. That's a prayer I do many times each day because it's so simple yet so effective. In the same way, on page 30, where it says, I have to fully concede to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic or a drug addict. When I fully concede to my innermost self that I am no longer running the show, I never was running the show, and I never will be running the show, suddenly life has changed from me struggling upstream to me just lying down in the river of life, allowing myself to be taken down. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. That's where I am when I know I'm not running the show. Go on then, God. Do whatever you want with me. I'm not going to put limitations to what. Go on then. How do I know I'm not running the show? Because unless I take my own life, which I'm not going to today, I don't get to choose when I take my last breath. That's how I know I'm not running the show of life. We are then in much less danger of excitement. I always used to think, why is excitement dangerous? I love being excited. Well, that was my problem. Excitement was this anticipation of something that I needed something to happen to be okay, to be excited. And this is what these practices, these continual practices have done for me. So my old life, say if I was going to Hawaii, I'd be like, yay, Hawaii. I'd be really excited and happy. But when I come back, I'd be like, oh my God, I've got to get back to work. But now I'm like that. Hawaii, yay, work, yay. So it's a bit more stable. I don't need an event, an outside event to happen to be okay. Um, Now, if anyone wants to buy me a trip to Hawaii, I'd be very happy, but I don't need that today. And the same teacher that said to me about her every breath was a prayer also said to me, Young, when you get deep, deep, deep on this spiritual path of the 12 steps and helping others, being close to God, you'll be as happy sat on a beach in Hawaii than sat in a tower block in East London. You'll be the same. You'll be as happy inside your soul. And I know that's true today. Um, Fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions, we become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. Again, another newcomer when I read this to them, because they teach me so much. These guys, man, so grateful to be able to do this. One of them said to me after I read that, they said, maybe that's why you sleep so little these days, because you're not burning up energy foolishly trying to arrange life to suit yourself. And I thought, maybe they've got a point, because I sleep maybe 4 hours a night and I seem to be okay on that. And I can't understand. I don't know why. Although I do like naps whenever I can get one in. It works. It really does. Absolutely 100%. We alcoholics are undisciplined. I can say that again. Undisciplined. So we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. How I can see that I'd surrendered back when I came in, because I just started to do these disciplines day in, day out, day in, day out, never not doing them, never not praying, never not meditating, never not doing the all the practices. But that's not all. There is action and more action. Faith without works is dead. And the next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12, which Rach will continue next week, I'm sure. So I'm just going to stop the recording. Thank you, guys.